Welcome, dear listeners, to History with Herodotus, where we embark on a journey through the annals of time, unraveling the mysteries of our collective past. Today, we find ourselves at the precipice of a pivotal event in modern history, one that would shake the foundations of empires and forever alter the trajectory of global politics: the Battle of Tsushima. As we delve into the origins of this naval clash, let us first set the stage, transporting you to the early 20th century, a time of great upheaval and transformation. It is the year 1904, and the world is witnessing the rise of new powers, as old empires struggle to maintain their dominance. In East Asia, the balance of power is shifting, with Japan emerging as a major force, driven by its rapid modernization and industrialization. The Meiji Restoration of 1868 had marked a significant turning point in Japanese history, as the country abandoned its feudal past and embarked on a path of modernization, adopting Western technologies, institutions, and values. As we explore the precursors to the Battle of Tsushima, it becomes clear that this conflict was not merely a clash of arms, but a collision of destinies. The world was watching, for the outcome would signal either the rise of a new power or the reaffirmation of an old empire's dominance. Key figures such as Japanese Admiral Hyakiro Togo and Russian Admiral Zinovy Rozdestvensky would soon find themselves at the helm of their respective navies, each determined to emerge victorious. The location of the impending conflict was equally significant. The Tsushima Strait, a narrow waterway separating Japan from the Asian mainland, would prove to be a decisive battleground. The strait's choppy waters, its shores lined with rugged coastlines and dotted with tiny islands, all set against the backdrop of a brewing storm, would soon become the stage for one of the most pivotal naval battles in history. Imagine, if you will, the bustling ports of Tokyo and St. Petersburg, where diplomats and military leaders were engaged in a delicate dance of negotiations and saber-rattling. The air was thick with tension, as the great powers of Europe and Asia jockeyed for position in the region. In this context, the fate of Korea and Manchuria hung precariously in the balance, as Japan and Russia vied for control over these strategic territories. The year 1904 was marked by a series of escalating incidents, including the Doggerbank incident, in which the Russian Baltic Fleet mistakenly attacked British fishing trawlers, and the sinking of the Russian cruiser Pallada by Japanese torpedo boats. These events only served to heighten tensions between Japan and Russia, setting the stage for the eventual outbreak of war. As we navigate the complex web of alliances and rivalries that led to the Battle of Tsushima, it becomes clear that this conflict was not an isolated event, but rather a culmination of years of tension and competition between Japan and Russia. The Treaty of Shimonoseki, signed in 1895, had marked a significant turning point in the region, as Japan emerged victorious from the First Sino-Japanese War, gaining control over Taiwan and the Pescadores Islands. However, this victory was short-lived, as Russia, Germany, and France intervened, forcing Japan to return the Liaodong Peninsula to China. This triple intervention marked a significant blow to Japanese pride and ambitions, setting the stage for future conflicts in the region. The events of 1904 would ultimately lead to the outbreak of war between Japan and Russia, with the Battle of Tsushima serving as a decisive turning point in the conflict. The battle would witness the destruction of the Russian Baltic Fleet, marking a significant shift in the balance of power in East Asia. As Japan emerged victorious, its naval prowess and strategic genius on full display. And so, dear listeners, having laid the groundwork for our exploration of the Battle of Tsushima, we now turn our attention to the pivotal moments that defined this conflict, the events that would etch its name into the annals of history as one of the most decisive naval battles of all time. Join me next as we navigate the tumultuous waters of 1905, a year that would witness the zenith of Japanese military strategy and the dawn of a new era in global politics. Welcome back to History with Herodotus, where we continue our journey through the annals of time, unraveling the mysteries of our collective past. In our previous episode, we set the stage for the Battle of Tsushima, a pivotal event in modern history that would shake the foundations of empires and forever alter the trajectory of global politics. Today, we find ourselves in the midst of this conflict, as the Japanese and Russian navies clash in a battle that would decide the fate of East Asia. It is May 27, 1905, and the stage is set for one of the most decisive naval battles in history. The Russian Baltic Fleet, led by Admiral Zinovy Rozdestvensky, has been at sea for over 7 months, having sailed over 18,000 miles from its base in Libo, Russia. The fleet, comprising 8 battleships, including the flagship Knyaz Suvorov, as well as numerous cruisers and destroyers, is a formidable force, but it is weary and worn out from its long journey. Meanwhile, the Japanese combined fleet, led by Admiral Hayakiro Togo, has been waiting in ambush, its ships deployed in a strategic position to maximize their advantage. The Japanese fleet is comprised of 4 battleships, including the flagship Mikasa, as well as numerous cruisers and destroyers. The Japanese have also laid a series of mines across the Tsushima Strait, which they hope will inflict significant damage on the Russian fleet. As the Russian fleet approaches the strait, it is met with a barrage of gunfire from the Japanese ships, which are deployed in a crescent-shaped formation. The Japanese fire is intense and accurate, striking several Russian ships, including the Knyaz Suvorov, which suffers significant damage. The Russians return fire, but their shots are largely ineffective, as they struggle to cope with the superior training and tactics of the Japanese. The battle rages on for several hours, with both sides suffering heavy losses. However, it becomes clear that the Japanese have gained the upper hand, as their ships continue to pour gunfire into the Russian fleet. The Russians attempt to break through the Japanese line, but they are repelled at every turn, suffering devastating losses. As the day wears on, the Russian fleet is in disarray, with several ships sunk or severely damaged. The Knyaz Suvorov, Admiral Rozdestvensky's flagship, is among the ships that have been sunk, and the admiral himself is wounded. The remaining Russian ships are forced to retreat, pursued by the Japanese, who continue to inflict damage on their enemy. The Battle of Tsushima is a crushing defeat for the Russian Navy, with over 3,000 sailors killed or wounded, and several ships sunk or captured. The Japanese, on the other hand, suffer relatively light casualties, with just over 100 sailors killed or wounded. The battle marks a significant shift in the balance of power in East Asia, as Japan emerges victorious, its naval prowess and strategic genius on full display. The aftermath of the battle sees the Russian fleet limping back to port, its ships battered and bruised. The Japanese, meanwhile, are hailed as heroes, their victory celebrated across the country. The Battle of Tsushima marks a turning point in the war between Japan and Russia, as the Japanese gain the upper hand, and the Russians are forced to negotiate a peace treaty. As we conclude this episode of history with Herodotus, we reflect on the significance of the Battle of Tsushima, a conflict that marked a major turning point in modern history. The battle demonstrated the importance of naval power in modern warfare, and highlighted the strategic genius of Admiral Hayakiro Togo, who led the Japanese fleet to victory against overwhelming odds. Join me next time as we explore the aftermath of the Battle of Tsushima and the impact it had on the world stage. Welcome back to History with Herodotus, where we continue our journey through the annals of time, unraveling the mysteries of our collective past. In our previous episodes, we set the stage for and explored the Battle of Tsushima, a pivotal event in modern history that would shake the foundations of empires and forever alter the trajectory of global politics. Today, we find ourselves in the aftermath of this conflict, examining the far-reaching consequences of the battle and its impact on the world stage. The Treaty of Portsmouth, signed on September 5, 1905, brought an end to the war between Japan and Russia. The treaty was negotiated by U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt, who had been following the conflict with great interest and saw an opportunity to expand American influence in East Asia. The terms of the treaty were heavily favorable to Japan, which gained control of Korea, as well as the southern half of the island of Sakhalin, and the leasehold on the Liaodong Peninsula. The Treaty of Portsmouth marked a significant turning point in modern history, as it signaled the emergence of Japan as a major world power. The country's military victory over Russia had demonstrated its capabilities, and the treaty solidified its position as a dominant force in East Asia. Japan's newfound status was recognized by the international community, and it soon became a member of the Great Powers Club, alongside Britain, France, Germany, and the United States. The consequences of the Battle of Tsushima were not limited to the rise of Japan, however. The conflict also marked the beginning of the end of the Russian Empire, which would eventually collapse in 1917. The defeat at Tsushima had exposed the weaknesses of the Russian military, and the country's inability to recover from the loss led to a decline in morale and a growing sense of discontent among its people. The Battle of Tsushima also had significant implications for the balance of power in East Asia. The conflict marked the beginning of a period of Japanese expansionism, as the country sought to consolidate its gains and expand its influence in the region. This would eventually lead to the Second Sino-Japanese War and World War II, as Japan's military ambitions clashed with those of other regional powers. In addition to its geopolitical consequences, the Battle of Tsushima also had a profound impact on naval warfare. The conflict demonstrated the importance of speed, maneuverability, and firepower in modern naval battles, and it led to significant changes in ship design and tactics. The use of mines, torpedoes, and other new technologies also became more widespread as navies around the world sought to adapt to the changing nature of warfare at sea. As we reflect on the significance of the Battle of Tsushima, we are reminded that the consequences of this conflict were far-reaching and profound. The battle marked a major turning point in modern history, as it signaled the emergence of Japan as a major world power and the beginning of the end of the Russian Empire. It also had significant implications for the balance of power in East Asia and the development of naval warfare. In conclusion, the Battle of Tsushima was a pivotal event in modern history, with far-reaching consequences that continue to shape our world today. Thank you for joining me on this episode of History with Herodotus. Until next time, farewell. That's all for today's History with Herodotus. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, remember that to understand the present, we must first understand the past.